HTLA Radio 1.
HTLA Radio 1 in New York proudly presents Sex and the Kitty with your intellectual host, Kate Taylor.
Welcome, my sexy meeps. It's HTL Late Night, and you are turned on to Sex and the Kitty with your host, this intellectual Kate Taylor, on HTLA Radio 1. As with all our programming, we are simulcast on various locations around the interweeb, and now we're listed on Stitcher.com on demand, and we can be purchased on iTunes by the season. Actually, we're still kind of getting that set up, so yeah, we'll be doing that soon. Remember, though, that this show is available 24/7, 365 on our website, www.htla973.com. So download me and listen to me at your leisure. However you choose to listen, join me to unwind after your work week as I show you how to reclaim your most sensual selves and create the most fulfilling life you can have anytime, anywhere. Sex is just the cherry on top of an authentic, fulfilled life. You can have it all every moment of every day, including your cigs, which I now smoke on air, and that's just what I do. So there. Remember, meeps, that tonight's show is sponsored by eHarmony, Sandals Resorts, and Trojan Twister. Get on it and get going. You won't regret it. Okay, I've also got to note that my opinions and those discussed here in tonight's show are my own and do not reflect the opinion of HTLA Radio 1, our advertisers, or our sponsors. Like I mention every show, I need to know what my listeners want, so send email to me at ktaylor@htla973.com, post to our show's website, the show page on the website, or tweet me at thekitty973. Now, last week, we talked about steps to creating a fantastic experience. I hope you took my advice and have some sizzling stories to tell. And do tell, get in touch. Since we switched focus to a purely sensual show, rather than a self-help format, it's been kind of tough for me to find a direction for you all. I mean, sex is, well, kind of easy, right? It's instinct, it's primal, it's the stuff that has continued us, that empowers us, but has also destroyed us. Jealousy, bad decisions, adultery, addiction. As with anything else, those powerful emotions and benefits come with responsibility. I would be remiss in offering ways to grow that power without tempering it with the tools for handling the emotional responsibility that comes with it. So, this week, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about the emotional ramifications of intimacy and sex. Remember, there's no condom for the heart. Once we give our bodies, even men, we give our hearts, or at least our minds. We talk a lot about STDs or unwanted pregnancy. And, well, if you're like us, not accidentally killing yourselves when trying new stuff. But for human beings, of course, sex is as much about the body as it is the emotional or psychological dimension of sex. It's this that makes it distinctively human. Our entire person, mind, body, and feelings is involved. And that's why sexual intimacy has potentially powerful emotional consequences. Why is it so much harder to discuss sex and emotional hurt? To name and talk about the damaging psychological effects that can come from sexual involvement? Well, for one thing, most of us have never heard this aspect of sex discussed. Our parents didn't talk to us about it. The media don't depict the emotional consequences of sex. Indeed, television and movies typically depict sex as consequence-free, right? And the debate over what to teach about condoms in schools or whether teens should have access to over-the-counter, morning after pills usually fails to address the fact that condoms and pills don't do a thing to make sex emotionally safe, right? So let's put it this way. If we knew, it wouldn't be so hard when it comes to trying to explain to our children how sex can harm one's personality and character, as well as one's health. We're at a loss for words or reduced to vague generalities such as, well, you're too young and you're not ready or you're not mature enough, And I've said it. We've said it to our teenage daughter too, but why? That kind of thing. Well, this is why. Because the psychological consequences, such as feelings of regret, for example, they're beginning to get more attention. A survey conducted asked married adults if you had a choice, to have waited for sexual intercourse, would you? And 2/3 of the adults that were asked said yes. And that's in this day and age today. It's not going back to the 50s. That's today. So, we've actually known about the emotional consequences of sex for a long time. Dr. Armand Nikolai Jr., clinical professor of psychology at Harvard Medical School, describes a study he carried out in the 60s. Not long after the sexual revolution was underway, clinicians observed that the new sexual freedom was creating a psychological disaster. We began to study Harvard students who complained of emptiness and despondency. There was a gap between their social conscience and the morality they were practicing in their personal lives. The new sexual permissiveness was leading to empty relationships and feelings of self-contempt. Many of these students were preoccupied with the passing of time and with death. They yearned for meaning, for moral framework. Pretty shocking, right? When some of them moved away from the moral relativism to a system of more clear values, typically that engaged in, embracing a drug-free lifestyle and a more strict sexual code for themselves, they reported that their relationships with the opposite sex improved, as did relations with peers in general, and relationships with their parents and their academic performance also improved. Boosting their self-esteem. It's all about that, right? The Harvard study, besides showing the negative effects of uncommitted sex, because that's what we're talking about here. I'm not on my religious soapbox, God forbid, or any of that stuff about premarital sex or all that kind of, stuff like that. But we're talking about just uncommitted sex. Also shows that individuals can choose to change their sexual behavior and reap the rewards of sexual self-discipline. Wow, that's a thought. So there's 10 emotional dangers associated with uncommitted sex. And some of them specifically, we're going to get into. They vary from person to person. I guess it depends on your level of self-esteem from the get-go and how you grew up and any kind of, traumas that you might have suffered growing up. Because God knows in this day and age we all have. But some emotional consequences are short-term, but they're still pretty serious. Some last a long time and even into marriage and parenting. They affect how we do these things. Now, many of the psychological consequences are hard to imagine until they've been experienced. But in all cases, the emotional repercussions of sexual experiences are not to be taken lightly. A moment's reflection reminds us that emotional problems can have damaging, even crippling effects on a person's ability to lead a happy and productive life. So it's not about that moment of pleasure only. Got to think a little further into the future than that. But some of the specific emotional dangers include, and we're talking again about, uncommitted sex. So just like booty calls and picking somebody up at the bar and just, friends with benefits or any of that kind of thing. Anything where you're not also emotionally invested in the growth of the relationship. That's what uncommitted sex is. So some of the things include worry about pregnancy and disease. And that's a huge one. I mean, God, how many of us, I'm sure all the hands are up, if I asked. How many one-night stands and how many things like that have caused us moments of panic about these two things. And they lead to things like regret and self-recrimination, guilt. God forbid you're faced with a situation where you have to, engage the subject of abortion. That's always a tough one for men and women, And that kind of thing leads to loss of self-esteem and self-respect, And then there's even the unusual question about oral sex and self-respect, especially in the beginning stages of relationships and things like that. Maybe you're not ready to go all the way and jump into bed with that hot new guy from the office. So you just do some of that other kind of stuff. Well, it still affects self-esteem. So, and this kind of thing can lead to the, unintended corruption of character. We start questioning ourselves and doing these kind of things that we wouldn't have done. And that kind of, shakes our belief about ourselves. And that leads to, trust in others, trust in our own decisions. And that then leads to depression and, hopefully never, but on occasion, suicide. These kind of things, they can damage relationships. They can ruin relationships. The way we feel about ourselves and our behaviors, they affect the way that we interact with other people. And these things, especially when started young, and carried through, they can lead to stunted personal development. And then you're in a situation where, okay, now you've met somebody and this is the one, and you want to start a great, wonderful, healthy whole life. But events before have led to these issues, and now you're in a situation where you can't be whole and can't do that well and can't do that properly. So before that happens, I just wanted to touch on a little bit about, that sex isn't just a physical thing. I'm the very, very, very first proponent of a hedonistic life, as anybody who knows me knows. Living your passions, living every moment, as your most authentic sexual self possible. But here's the rub. The reason for doing so is to utilize that procreative energy and motivation for the creation of everything. This is the reason we do everything better when we're sexually strong in our life. Consider this. Be a conscious participant in your every moment, and be sure to utilize your sexual strength and security for your growth and improvement, not as a crutch or a distraction. That's just a waste of your power and your overall purpose. Trust me. So as always, let me know what you think. Let me know how it goes. If you have any further comments about this topic tonight, and if there's anything else you'd like me to address in future episodes, I'll be happy to do so. It's all about the best. It's all about the best, the most authentic, the happiest, the wholest, the healthiest. And, people forget that it's that trifecta of mind, body, and spirit that causes that. And since we've kind of made that jump into, the purely physical pleasure side of things in this show, I just kind of felt obligated to remind everybody that the initial purpose of this show was so everyone could be as whole and authentic and feeling as good about themselves as possible. We engage in sex for a lot of different reasons, but the bottom line is we want to improve our self-esteem and the way that we feel about ourselves. And intimate engagement with somebody else is the fastest way to do that. But if you're not doing it in a longer term relationship, like I said earlier, in a relationship where you're invested in the emotional growth of the relationship, then you really have to be careful about those things that I just talked about. Because, we've just, for example, great example. We just had a friend who, met someone, thought it was the greatest person in the world, did things for this person they would never do for someone after just meeting them a month or so. It was everything. Even put this person in their will, all this kind of stuff. And now this person has a huge Facebook page dedicated to all the other partners that this person was engaged in at the same time as their relationship. So it's devastating to, the person that thought they were loved and what they thought the relationship meant and where they thought it was going. And, it's a tough kind of thing. So you always have to protect yourself and consider the emotional investment in your relationships, not just the physical ones, because they actually mean more and they last longer and they're the important bits. So that's what you have to do. And again, if you have any questions, you need anything, you just give me a call and write me and drop me a note and we'll address them. I'm always here. We're going to take our first commercial break and then we'll get into some more lighthearted, fun kind of stuff. And I've got some great recommends in mail for you today. So stay with me and we will be back in 2 minutes.
I think what it is that you don't know it until you have it. Because I heard that in the past. You always hear these people being like, oh, well, she's not right for you. You'll know. And I'm like, okay, yeah, well, you'll know. Well, this is what they were talking about.
When I first heard him on the phone, I thought he was really sexy.
I love this girl to death, and Anne-Marie changed my life because I was going in 100 different directions.
It is easy to be with Lee. It's easy to love him.
she is extremely happy, lighthearted, doesn't let things get to her, you know. And I learned from that, and I'm jealous of that, but she's bringing that into my life.
I'm much more laid back and kind of go with the flow.
Me, not so much.
Yeah.
Anne-Marie allows me to be who I am. I mean, as long as I have her, that's it.
See how it feels to be matched based on compatibility. Log on and review your matches for free. eHarmony.com.
Cold, clean, iron-free. This was the water he had been searching for. Down in the hollow, where he would build his business. Never varying from his recipe. Staying true to the process. Growing to meet a demand that would stretch far beyond the hills of Tennessee. Quite a feat for the little man from the middle of nowhere, who knew he had something so special. He was proud to give it his name.
When whippoorwills call and evening is nigh, I hurry to my heaven. Just a turn to the right, you find a little white light will lead you to my blue.
Book now, save up to 65%. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
HTLA Radio 1.
Okay, we are back, Meeps, and we're going to carry on with a little less serious part of the show and the fun part, the part that everybody waits for. Now, tonight on My Case Recommends, I would like you to do something for me. I would like you to go to www.shunga.com, and that's SHUNGA.com, and I want you to check out what's there. Now, I'm not going to tell you, but I will say that it's one of the items needed for some of the stuff on my top 10 sex tidbits list a little later in the show. So stay tuned. All right, listener mail time. And I know you're all going to ask and say, well, why did you have this question earlier? You know, it should have been the first one. But here we go. Dear Kitty, I'm sure you get this question all the time, but nothing I read on the internet is really helping. I have been married for 10 years, and I really want to ask my wife to entertain the thought of finding another woman to have sex with us. Thing is, my initial instinct is, once I ask, she'll freak out and things will change between us. So how can I go about this? Signed, trying for two. Okay. Okay. Well, yes, I'm sure all of these questions, you know, I don't read my own mail right now. I have it chosen for me by my producer, but, you know, I'm sure this question comes up an awful lot. But, wow. Well, I guess the first thing that I can say is that if your initial instinct is that she's going to freak out, then she's going to freak out. And that you're going to have to be really delicate if this is something that is really important to you. You know, you're going to have to, kind of slip it in there covertly and kind of get a feel for how she's feeling about this sort of thing. You know, try and go rent a movie where, you know, this subject matter is something that's part of the plot, you know, but in a positive way. You know, don't show the destruction of the couples after the menage a trois or anything, because that wouldn't be a good thing. You know, try and find something that's positive that, you know, made it kind of a stronger thing. And, you know, start right now reassuring, you know, your commitment to your relationship and your commitment to her and, you know, telling her how beautiful you think she is and how, you know, sliding in there, you know, when you see some other woman, maybe how hot it would be to see you dancing with her or something. You know, start very soft and slow and little. And, you know, I can't impress upon on men enough that, you know, with women, it's a build thing. And you got to start slow and you've got to build. And you can't just hit us with stuff. It just doesn't work like that, you know. And the best way to get us to do anything is to build to it, you know, and kind of ease us into things, especially something like this. That's a huge, huge thing. In fact, I can't think of a more huge thing than this would be. So, I mean, our relationship is kind of cool and open and things like that, so it wouldn't be a huge deal if it were suggested to me. But, you know, if you definitely think that that's going to be a no-no and, you know, you're going to get shut down right out of the gate, then definitely try and build it and make it as much of a positive thing as possible. Check out they have a lot of couples, retreats and weekends and vacations and things like that. And that might be a better place to do that than at home where, things are more set and conservative and the way things are, in a new environment and someplace fun and more relaxed and carefree. She might be more open to something like that. So that would be a good thing to do. But, let me know how it goes. And if anybody else has anything to chime in about it, write me, let me know. Don't forget, you can send your questions to ktaylor@htla973.com or tweet me at thekitty973. All right. Now, my top 10 sex tidbits of the week. Because since this is really a sex show, I like to always finish off my weekly session with you by offering this. And this is a great list. So what we're talking about this year, and I guess I should have done it a couple weeks ago, but still it's January and it's still the new year. So this week we're going to talk about the things that you can do for your sex life in the new year to make it better than it was in 2013. Because 2013 was kind of a rough year for everybody, everybody I talked to was like, thank God it's over. So I think we should revitalize our sex lives too. And in 2014, try a whole bunch of new stuff. So here's my list for you on how to do that. The first thing we can do is be spontaneous. I'm sure you hear that a lot, but you could be afraid of feeling shy at the wrong moment and, in turn disappoint your partner. Well, don't worry. 2014 is all about a fresh and new start. So you're going to have to learn to leave your inhibitions and get more spontaneous in the sack this new year. Again, talk about it. Create that build. Anytime you can have a conversation that can turn a little steamy, that's a good thing. You want to keep that spark going in any way that you possibly can, right? So what else you can do is get vocal in the bedroom. It's totally fine to be a chatterbox at the dining table, but we say get vocal in the bedroom too. Tell your partner what'll drive you crazy. Say those phrases that turn your partner on. Don't be shy. This is the place to be your most confident and primal self. If you can't do it while you're having sex, then forget it. Just forget it. So this is my favorite one, and I'm actually looking forward to that, and we might start tomorrow. Rechristen the house. Have you yet had sex in every corner of the house? Well, if you have, get going on doing it all over again. Get imaginative, starting with the kitchen counter, then hit the dining table, move to the staircase, and then even in the bathroom. Try every available flat surface you can find and have your way with your partner. After all, the new year is about making everlasting memories. And that's a good way to start doing it. Well, surprisingly on the list, and I'm finding it on every list that I'm trying to research for you guys. Ever heard of BDSM? Well, it's time to get dominating. Awaken the dom in you and give your spouse the time of their life this new year. Do your research. Make sure whatever you've got in mind is going to be A-okay with your partner. Then get to it. Indulge in some role play to make things interesting and explore a side of yourself you may not even know has existed. Well, here's another one. It could get kind of messy, though. Foodgasms. No, we don't mean breakfast in bed. Though that's not a bad idea if we say, and you can pull that one off. But get cracking in the bedroom in 2014 with food items that you can eat off each other, like whipped cream, maple syrup, chocolate sauce, and red wine for starters. Well, red wine could get kind of messy, but... Now, here's a tip. Try avoiding too cold or hot items. You don't want to end up burning your partner or cooling off the flames of desire. And don't forget, ice cubes can burn too, so be careful. Yeah, I know that from firsthand experience. Well, here's another good one. No touching. Sounds weird, right? But it can be great fun if tried. Do everything you'd normally do as foreplay or to get your partner hot and willing, but don't actually follow through. By the time the next day, or more if you dare, or so comes around, your partner will likely tear into your time together with a new sense of purpose and passion. Feeling so appreciated by your partner will boost confidence and be a big turn on whenever you think about it from then on. So definitely give that a whirl. Denial, it shouldn't be overrated. All right, or underrated. as the case may be. Here's a good one, and this is why I wanted you to go to shunga.com. Get sketching. The new year is all about doing the most unexpected. Let your body be the canvas and ask your partner to sketch on you. You don't have to be a really good artist. Just put your feelings visually on each other's body. Capture it with a phone or camera and keep it as a beautiful memory. That's a good thing. Now, get back in shape. If you're curvy or too thin, it's time to get back in shape in 2014. Your partner's bound to notice even the slightest changes in your body, and they'll love exploring it. There's no better gift to give your partner or yourself in 2014. You know, we can all benefit from some mild exercise and some endurance training and all that kind of good stuff. All right, date night. And this is actually something that we've been trying to do for a while now, because the new year's all about making a fresh start, right? So if you're a couple who's married for years, it's time to get back in the act and put your desire for each other first again. Select a day in the week wherein the two of you have a kids-free date, followed by a passionate session. You know, you do this and you'll see that the spark's back, especially if you incorporate some of the other things on this list. You know, definitely would be a good reason to do that. Now, here's another one, and I guess I advocate it, and we've talked about things like this before, but try a new sex position every week. Isn't the new year about trying out new things? So go buy the latest edition of Kama Sutra or research positions on the web and get to it. Choose a new sex position every week and make sure you try it out with your partner. Getting adventurous in the bedroom doesn't have to cost a dime, so you definitely want to try doing that and making it happen. Now, we really need you guys to give us some input here on what you want to hear about and what kind of things that you'd like me to explore and talk about for you. Because I'm trying to, like I said, keep it less self-helpy and more sexually fun and adventurous. And you're actually going to have to stay tuned because we're working on a new show that we've got in development now called The Lifestyle. And it explores the many lives of kink. So we're going to be getting into, you know, all things not vanilla kind of sex and deviations and fetishes and kinks and things like that. And we'd appreciate your input into what kind of things you'd like to learn about or hear about. You know, maybe you saw something on TV and a scene in a movie or something. You want to know what it is or what it's about or where you can start getting involved. And we're going to have experts on the show in each of these respective areas, and they're going to explain things to us and shatter prejudicial myths about alternative lifestyles and things like that. So, you know, we definitely want your input on what kind of shows you'd like to see the first few shows or hear the first few shows, and we'll definitely see about getting those things booked for you. So yeah, it's gonna be good. But you know, it's busy, it's tough. We got 5 shows a week on the air, so we're trying to get around to getting that rolling and getting that booked. So we will, but we want to know what kind of stuff you want to hear. And remember, the less vanilla, the better. So, and there's nothing that can shock us and nothing we're not going to be afraid to talk about. So feel free to just write me and tell me what you want to hear. Okay. Well, yeah, that's pretty good. So there you have it. And yeah. And that's the show for this week. So thank you for listening to this week's episode of Sex and the Kitty. And I thank you for staying turned on with me here. Thank you to my husband and ever professional producer, my reason for waking up in the morning, CJT. A big thank you to our sponsors and affiliates, and I'd like to shout out to our ever-growing supporters and listeners that this show is for you. Thank you for your continued participation. If you've missed any part of tonight's broadcast, just visit www.htla973.com and check out the broadcast page. Don't forget to see me and Crash every weekend as we post our webisodes for you too. Create a free profile. Write me. Stay in the sexy know. Be fierce, kitties. Good night.